Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. So I have a bit less than an hour to do this, so hopefully this won't be too long. So I decided to rewatch this movie. I saw that it was on the YouTube free with ads things, and I was like, sure, because I don't think any of the other Muppet movies are like that, because I know I've been watching a couple this year. Some of the newer ones, I finally watched Muppets Most Wanted, and then Muppets 2011, so I thought I'll just watch a Muppet movie every once in a while. The ones I do really want to rewatch though are the Christmas Carol one and the pirate one with Tim Curry, but I don't know when I'll get around to those. Anyway, this one's fun. I feel like I have mixed opinions on it, especially after rewatching Muppets, The Great Muppet Caper, which is like the one that takes place before this. They're very different from each other. I just feel like it's kind of natural for me to compare Muppet movies. I notice in general they kind of go in a sort of order where you'll have like a really and I don't know if it's like on purpose or anything, but it'll be like a really sentimental one, and then a comedy, and it'll go back to being very like wholesome and sentimental, and it just keeps bouncing around like that. Not that they're all like that, but it's just something I've kind of noticed. I tend to prefer the ones that are more comedic, even though the ones that are sweet, I enjoy a lot of those moments as well. Like that's kind of the way you can compare 2011 Muppets and Most Wanted, for example, or like going from The Great Caper to going to this one as well. I do like the concept of this though, of the Muppets being like college students that are trying to put on this musical that like Kermit had come up with. It's called Manhattan Melodies, and they decide to go to New York and take it to Broadway, but then they're not successful with it, and then it kind of gets really slow, and on one hand I like how very kind of slow and human this one specifically feels, and it's one of the Muppet movies to me that feels the most like the Muppets are really a part of just the natural world. I guess I feel like with a lot of the Muppet movies it feels like the Muppets just live in this world of like humans, and the other characters, like the human characters, know that they're Muppets and kind of treat them as such. They feel kind of secondary to like the humans, but then here it feels like they're just naturally, other than like some comments, like there's always the thing of like interspecies relationship, like how the characters are kind of weird around some of them about like Piggy and Kermit dating, because like, oh, they're a pig and a frog, so there's always stuff like that, but this one it felt the most like they were really just incorporated into the world and everything, and the Muppets themselves feel just very normal here. Maybe that's why I feel mixed on it, where it's not really about them going to New York to make this musical. I mean, that's Kermit's whole thing. He's like the main character of this. It's mostly him and Piggy, really, even though they're separated for most of the movie. It's more of the Muppets trying to get jobs and survive and stuff, and it feels weird kind of watching this one sometimes, where I'm like a young person at that stage trying to make my way in the world as well, and then seeing the Muppets do that, where they all end up actually splitting off for most of the movie, and you get to see every once in a while kind of what some of them are doing, but it feels weird as a Muppet movie where like most of the Muppets aren't really in it. Like they finally get back together at the end, but it's like at the very, very end, it feels more like it's like a Kermit and Piggy. That's why I feel like this poster is accurate. Not just, I love the design of it, of looking like a big like Broadway poster. It's very flashy and stuff, but it really is just Kermit and Piggy in Manhattan, not really like the Muppets and stuff. I mean, there's a couple of Muppets that are there. Like, I think this is the movie where Rizzo the Rat's introduced, and he works at the same place that Kermit does, which is like this restaurant and stuff. And the New Zealander guy that's like obsessed with fish or whatever, and then Piggy's there and Kermit's there, and that's kind of really about it from what I remember. So that's like a bit of a bummer that's not really the Muppets. It's only like a few Muppets, I guess. I kind of wish the others had more of a role or something. And the other thing too, this poster is like very flashy. If it's like, whoa, they're going to New York, they're doing a Broadway thing, but a lot of this movie actually isn't flashy. Like I said, it's about the Muppets like just trying to get like jobs and stuff. Kermit works at this little restaurant coffee shop place with this woman named Jenny who they end up becoming friends, and Piggy's like kind of jealous of that and is like stalking Kermit throughout the movie. But Jenny's kind of really boring as like a human. I know there's always like human characters in the Muppets and stuff, but I feel like she's just so ordinary. That's probably supposed to be the point. It feels like a movie where it's more about like ordinary people, and I like that, but it also just doesn't make it as fun. Jenny's just kind of there, I guess, as like Kermit's friend. And it is kind of funny though, the segments with Piggy when she's like stalking them and it's getting like increasingly angry and stuff. I do like Kermit and Piggy's relationship in this, actually, where they mention when they're still in college about like potentially getting married one day, and they do at the end of the movie. I'm not sure if it's like legal or not though, but Piggy's like kind of stalking Kermit, and they get into this big argument scene that I really, really like, where they're like just shouting at each other and stuff, because I feel like in later movies Kermit's kind of more of like a doormat in their relationship, where it's like obviously he loves Miss Piggy and stuff, but like she's the one that's kind of more in control of their relationship. It feels kind of toxic. Not like it's like that in every newer movie. Like, I remember saying that I didn't really buy their romance in the 2011 one, where they're treated as like exes, but then I liked their relationship in the Muppets Most Wanted and stuff, where she's like trying to find him because Kermit's like in the gulag and stuff. It feels very mixed to me, their relationship, where it's like sometimes I feel like I believe their romance, and in some movies I don't know, but I do like it here. I mean, the stalking Kermit thing isn't cool, and he like calls her out on it and stuff, which is good. And then you see that like they do really like love each other and stuff, and they do agree to get married at the end. And I like Miss Piggy a lot in these like newer movies. I feel like when I was not these newer movies, these older movies, I feel like when I was younger I didn't really like Miss Piggy, because like most people know, and how like she's mostly portrayed as like this big diva and stuff with all these cool outfits and such, and it's like very fun. But I feel like I like her more in like this one and Great Caper specifically. I don't really remember how she is in the Muppet movie, where she's just like this normal girl trying to like work up the ladder. She's taking like whatever jobs she can. Like in this one, I think it's her and Joan Rivers. They work in like a makeup counter in like a mall or something. Rather than later on, she's like a bit more of a diva and like a bit too self-absorbed and stuff. But here, she's just like a normal person, like everyone else and stuff. Like she's still like obsessively in love with Kermit, but I feel like it's like a little more toned down. I don't know. It almost feels like, or no, I'm thinking of Great Caper, where she has more of like a crush on him. It's sweet. What else? Oh yeah, something else about Piggy. I always like, especially from watching the older movies, her hairstyle and fashion. She like very much keeps up with the times. Like in this movie, she has a perm because it's like the 80s and stuff, and I just think that's really fun. There's also a scene with her that I really like, where she's upset about Kermit and Jenny like hanging out together and like hugging, or whatever she calls it, huggies. And I swear her coworker's like Joan Rivers or something, I'm pretty sure, and her coworker's trying to cheer her up and ends up doing Piggy's makeup. And it's probably one of my favorite scenes in this movie, actually, because it like kind of takes its time. It's not like rushed or anything, and the makeup looks terrible, but they're both just having like so much fun with it. In the end, I think they end up getting in trouble with their boss or something, and it's very sweet, and it cheers up Piggy. I just love scenes like that. They even have like matching uniforms and stuff too. I just like scenes where it's like the Muppets are just like normal people and stuff. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the beginning of my notes. I didn't mean to jump this far ahead. The music in this is good. The Muppet movies, like music and stuff, or the Muppet series in general, the music is always good. I always have some favorites. I forgot that this is the one where I think Together Again comes from, or I think so. I don't know, because it's like the opening song, but you don't have the lyrics to it. But it's become one of my favorites. Like it was kind of just in my head ever since watching Muppets Most Wanted. I do like the version in that movie though, where it's like all of these other people, even that aren't Muppets, start joining in and stuff, where they're singing it in the gulag. It's kind of ridiculous, but here it's nice. It's a lot simpler. The Muppets, when they get to New York, they have to sleep in airport lockers because they're small enough to fit in, and then later on you see they're still sleeping in the airport lockers, but they've like kind of stylized them a bit. I found that funny. This song "You Can't Take No for an Answer" is really this like catchy funk song that has this saxophone. I think I mentioned it last time too, of like how I always forget how good the in-universe band, the Electric Mayhem, is. I know they have a show now on like Disney Plus or something. I gotta watch that at some point. Anyway, yeah, I think this is the movie where Rizzo the Rat is introduced, where I find it funny, and they do make jokes about it, of him being a rat that works as a waiter in a restaurant. He's kind of like the secondary character to Kermit and stuff, where he's like him and Jenny's co-worker. I just find it funny most of this movie is just Kermit working in a restaurant and stuff while trying to make his Broadway dreams come true. Like, it's very realistic, but it also just and it fits with Kermit. He feels like the most like normal in a sense of like the Muppets, but I don't know, like it makes it boring where it's like, Muppet movies are usually exciting, but it's like this one's very slow paced and so normal, but there's just also something about it I like. That's why I feel really mixed about this movie. Definitely not one of my favorites, and I don't really find it as like funny. I think it's just kind of like meh, but there's still something about it. Like, it's like charming, and now it kind of makes me want to rewatch the original movie, because I remember I didn't actually really like the original Muppet movie. I found it like a bit too slow and boring, but I'm curious how it like compares to this one, if my tastes have changed. I don't know when I'll get around to it though. But yeah, the Muppets decide to leave Kermit like half an hour into the movie or so, because they think that they depend on him too much, which is true. But then from Kermit's perspective, it's like as if they abandoned him and don't believe in the show, which like isn't true. And then there's this song about like saying goodbye. I skipped through it because it's like it's very sweet, but it's like a little too sad. Oh yeah, as usual, there's a bunch of like celebrities in this. Like, you even see them on the poster. I actually didn't recognize most of the people in this movie, but that I think tends to happen for me for some of the like older Muppet movies and stuff, where where it's from like the 80s and 70s, where it's not always people I would know. I did recognize Liza Minnelli though. She looks so young in this, because this is also from the 80s, so she just has a short part where Kermit is, it's a scene that I found kind of funny, where he's doing this like whisper campaign in a restaurant of trying to seem like a big shot Broadway producer or whatever, and his picture gets put up on a wall by the rat characters, and then Liza Minnelli's there, and she's like sad that her picture's been replaced or something. She's like talking to the owner. I felt kind of bad for her, and she isn't even really like a character in this. There's a scene where Piggy's chasing Kermit in a park that's pretty funny, where they're like both jogging, and then some guy ends up stealing Piggy's purse, and she chases him at like full speed, and the guy's like absolutely terrified. And there's this one part, and I had to pause and I sent it to my friend, where Piggy jumps off a rock to like tackle the guy, but then when she jumps, it's not the puppet. It's not like the puppet's thrown in the person. It's like a human person dressed as Piggy. But with the way the camera is, it just looks like it's a human-sized Miss Piggy with like human proportions, and it's like very cursed. Because they have to, do that every once in a while with the Muppet movies. It's always funny, but just kind of like, ugh. And then their argument scene, like I mentioned, it's great. Not just they're arguing, and I'm glad I'm always glad when Kermit has a backbone, because his relationship with Piggy is like definitely toxic. It's something that's kind of on my mind whenever I watch the Muppet movies, because I had to literally research it for one of my college classes for a project. But while they're having their argument, there's this guy who Miss Piggy had taken his roller skates, and he just wants his roller skates back, and then ends up getting invested in their trauma of like their argument, and is like taking sides and stuff. That was pretty funny. Oh, and then Miss Piggy has this like dream sequence that's kind of weird, where it's like Muppet Babies, but it's before the actual show came out, like later in the 80s. I'm wondering if this is what inspired it or something. It is kind of cute though. Like, I don't normally like baby versions of characters. I always feel like it's like kind of a cash grab, and sometimes they can look kind of weird. But the baby Muppets are cute, especially like baby Piggy. She looks like she's like a toddler or something. And baby Gonzo's kind of weird to look at, because I'm so used to him with that like super, what color is his nose? Like really dark blue. He looks kind of like old in terms of like his puppet design or something. But then baby Gonzo, his entire face, including his nose, is like light blue, so I guess it like darkened with age or something. He looks so young. Gonzo just looks so like young and sorry, I couldn't remember Gonzo's pronouns for a second. I threw myself off. They just look so like young and youthful, and it's like, whoa, even having like blush on the cheeks. But the design, the playroom is cute. The song's actually like kind of catchy. I thought I was gonna find it like cringe or something. Where Piggy's singing about like she wishes she knew Kermit when they were younger and stuff. I don't know why it had to go so far as to like from when they were babies, but whatever. I'm used to seeing the Baby Muppets animated. I've never actually watched the show. I mean, I know there's like a show from the 80s, and then there's like a 3D one that's like newer or something. But yeah, it's cool seeing them as like actual puppets. Maybe I'll check out that show. I don't know. I want to check out the original. I'm like more curious than anything. Sorry, I've talked about some of these parts, so I have to like skip through my notes. Baby Rolf in that scene, real quick, the one with like the baby flashback, he's jamming it out on the piano and he looks like he's having so much fun. That was really cute. And then speaking of Rolf, there's a segment, because sometimes you see what the Muppets are like up to. They send postcards to Kermit where they sound like they're having a great time with their new life, but like they're actually not. Rolf works at like a dog pound or something with like Muppet dogs in there. And there's this rich guy that's coming to drop off his dog, and there's like a driver or something, or I don't know, servant, butler person or whatever that's also there, and it's just stone cold, dead inside face holding this like fluffy dog. Dude doesn't even blink on camera. That was the funny part of the scene to me, more so than anything else. I like how the producer who finally gives Kermit his chance is like the son of this older producer who's just trying to make it big. I feel like that would make sense, because like the characters in universe treat Kermit's show as in like being kind of weird and experimental, even though it's not. It's like a very simple plot and everything, and not that weird. I think they just see it as weird because they're like, whoa, singing amphibians, you got dogs and cats and bears and whatnot in the show, you know, because they're like Muppets or whatever. I guess they're less treated as Muppets and more of just like animals, even though they're not all animals. Like, I don't know what Gonzo is, and neither do the Muppets really. But yeah, it's just this young guy who's like pretending to be the producer, and he's like, oh, my dad's actually the producer, but he'll let me like produce the show. And he like, it's this guy that like really believes in the show, and I thought that was nice, you know, because the whole thing is about like finding your place in the world and stuff. And I feel like it wouldn't make sense for like an older producer to like suddenly be like, yeah, Muppet musical or whatever. I feel like it wouldn't really fit. And then Kermit's so excited about the news, but then you notice there's still half an hour left of the movie, and you're like, okay, what's the hiccup? And the hiccup turns out to be that Kermit gets hit by a taxi and then ends up with amnesia up until like right before they have to perform, even when he's like reunited with the Muppets and then they're all together and stuff. And I just felt like that was kind of there to like add drama and to pad the runtime. I didn't really like that plot point. But yeah, Kermit gets hit by a taxi, and you think it's gonna be like funny. I think that happened in like Great Caper, actually. I remember one of the other Muppet movies, a Muppet gets hit by a car and it's like played for laughs, and the actual puppet gets like thrown by the car or something. But then in this one, you actually don't see Kermit gets hit, and it's like treated seriously. So then he gets amnesia, and the thing is, Jenny and Piggy, because they're like co-workers and I guess get along now, they had gotten Kermit's call of like, hey, a producer's gonna come and do our show, but then it's already nighttime and Kermit hasn't shown up, and then all the Muppets are together and they don't know, nobody knows where Kermit is because he didn't have any identification, and the hospital says like, yeah, you weren't wearing clothes, we don't know who you are. But that's gotta be scary, you know. I feel like that happens in TV, probably happens in real life too. I feel like I see it in a lot of movies where it's like a character gets amnesia at the beginning of the story and they wake up in the hospital, or at least in this, it's like Kermit wakes up alone in the hospital, as in like none of his family or friends are there. I mean, I guess it's less scary for him because he has amnesia, where he he doesn't have relatives to miss and wonder where they are, but it's gonna be scary to just wake up from an accident, like not know who you are or anything, and no one knows who you are, no one knows how to find you and stuff, and meanwhile your relatives are probably like worried sick. I liked the scene though where the doctor is checking on Kermit's injuries and stuff. It's like very kind of slow and gentle, but also kind of funny, where she's able to do stuff to him because he's a puppet, but it's like part of the checkup thing where she'll like twist his arm or makes his mouth fold or something. It has this like comforting vibe. I can see the woman on the poster. She's the one with the like curly brown hair, but I'm assuming she's someone famous. I don't know who she is. But that part felt kind of comforting. It felt like ASMR, but without the tingles. I think because she speaks in like a very soft, calming voice, it just, that scene, watching that scene actually kind of like relaxed me a bit. But it was also kind of just funny. I don't know, because like Kermit, I'm thinking about this part where she like tickles his feet and he like laughs, but it's in this very like kind of natural way. You don't really hear Kermit laugh like that. And then there's this part where she's like, okay, let's check your mandible, and she grabs his like mouth and then shuts it, and he makes, it's not that like this, it's kind of that like squashed Kermit face a little bit, but like a bit more extreme. And then his face isn't being puppeted, because then she opens his mouth and stuff, and it always feels kind of weird with like Muppets, where it's, you know, normally there's like the puppeteer there and stuff and moving, and the Muppets move in like very realistic ways. It's why they feel so real. But then there's sometimes parts where it's like they're just the puppet and they're not being controlled, and you're just taken out of it for like just a second of like, oh right, that's not a real person, you know. But yeah, then Kermit has amnesia, and the way they get him out of the amnesia in a very Muppet fashion is that, and it is a little sad at first, and then kind of funny, where the Muppets end up finding Kermit again, and it's like the day of the show. I'm like skipping out a little bit. There's like a whole side plot where he joins a frog advertising company or something, and then Piggy tells him how like they're lovers or something, and Kermit actually laughs at her, and it's making all these like jokes related about pigs or something, and she's understandably insulted and smacks him so hard that he gets his memory back conveniently, like right before they have to perform or something. I need to look at the titles of the songs. I think I skipped some when I was like talking about them. There actually doesn't for being like a movie about making a musical and stuff, it doesn't really feel like there's actually a lot of songs in here. I feel like a lot of them are just kind of like, like there's only a couple of them, I mean, for me personally, that felt very like memorable and I guess kind of fun. I don't know, of like Together Again, of course, which I don't think they really get to like sing it, which is a bit of a bummer. I think they only get to sing it as like the intro, when they're performing at like the college, and then that's kind of about it. I mean, I'm glad it's not overplayed, but I'm also like, oh, I wish I could have heard it more. But there's this song that's like the opening song of their musical, and throughout the movie they keep trying to sing it and then not being able to because they keep getting interrupted by people. I don't know what it's called, but I really like it. It has like a very gentle opening. It kind of reminded me, like instrumentally especially, of Sesame Street music and the music from the Raggedy Ann movie. Well, I feel like Sesame Street and the Raggedy Ann movie kind of go hand in hand, because I think it's like the same person that writes the Sesame Street songs, but it like kind of gave me that vibe a little bit. It was nice. And I like the whole thing where throughout the movie Kermit is trying to figure out like, something's missing from our show, and then he says it needs more bears and frogs and whatever's, where basically he recruits all the people that they met throughout the movie, which I guess isn't really much. I think it's all just the people Kermit met when he had like amnesia, but then also the rats he made friends with in the restaurant and stuff. And then they get to be part of the show, and I feel like it does match with their, apparently the plot of their musical is about preparing for like a wedding or something. It's actually like really short. It only has like one or two songs, but then the other Muppets that aren't part of their group get to be like people just in the city and stuff, and it makes the world of their musical feel more alive, and I thought like that was a good choice. But yeah, I like the Broadway style like tunes that are in this movie. I feel like it makes it very fun. And I'm like mixed on the movie in general, but I always love the part at the end when they finally get to perform Manhattan Melodies and you get to see all their sets and everyone's singing and stuff. And I actually do really like the part where Kermit and Piggy get married as part of the musical's plot, where even the characters aren't sure if it's like a legal wedding, where apparently Gonzo was supposed to play the minister and Piggy just kind of laughs it off. And I don't know if Kermit knows or thinks he's like legally getting married. I feel like maybe he is or he thinks that way because he's very hesitant and kind of takes a while to say I do, but then he eventually does, I think, kind of proving that he does want to marry Piggy. And I feel like whether it's like canon or not, or if it was like part of their musical or something, because the Muppet movies, I think they're supposed to be kind of like them acting anyway, I'm assuming, kind of like the Barbie movies. I feel like this is the closest to what, like, if Kermit and Piggy really did canonically get, like, married or something, this is what it would be like. I also like the detail of the Sesame Street characters being there. It's not really, like, foreshadowing. Maybe it's supposed to be during the whole segment where they're singing and being babies and stuff. There's this one part where baby Rolf has this little plushie that's very visible and stuff because he's, like, holding on to it and stuff. Of Big Bird, and then Big Bird is later there at the wedding. I remember when I watched this for the first time, because, like, I don't think this was, like, the very first Muppet movie I saw. I think the first one I saw was the original, because it was after I'd, like, watched the Muppet Show and stuff. I think my first Muppet movie was actually Muppets 2011. Anyway, when I had sort of was getting more into the Muppets before I watched the Muppet Show and stuff, and like really getting into the Muppets, this movie I think just happened to be on TV, and I remember watching it, and I really did think back then that like Kermit and Piggy were actually getting married, and I had just assumed it was like canon or something. I didn't realize it was like part of their musical plot, but I remember I was like, whoa, it's the Sesame Street characters, and I was like so excited for some reason. But it is kind of cool, honestly. Like they have Big Bird, they have Bert and Ernie. I can't remember if Oscar the Grouch is there too or not, but you get to actually hear them like talk to each other. They're not just like people in the background or whatever, and I thought that was pretty cool. And I feel like with them getting married, Kermit and Piggy in this movie, I feel like it still fits, where it's like the first three movies, it does kind of feel like they're sort of going from like friends to lovers a little bit. So I feel like this is probably a good time, if any, in a Muppet movie if they're like going to get married, especially because like I don't remember what the romantic relationship is like in like the other movies between like this and Muppets 2011, because I feel like those other ones, from what I can remember, like the Pirates one, there's the Christmas Carol, there's like the Wizard of Oz. From what I remember, I don't think they're like as focused on Kermit and Piggy's relationship, because like then they start doing movies about like adaptations of things and stuff where they're like playing characters. Though I remember the Christmas Carol, Piggy and Kermit's characters have like kids and something. But then I feel like them getting married here also kind of works, where like with the 2011 Muppets, they're like very treated as like exes that end up getting back together or something. So but yeah, the whole wedding scene is really sweet. Great way to end not just their like in-universe musical, but also the movie. One of my favorite Muppet movie endings, honestly. Not like the favorite, but it's pretty cool. And then they get to kiss at the end too. There's this part with the credits. I mean, Kermit does kiss her on the cheek, I think, at the wedding, and he says this line of something of like hand in hand with a friend, but then it goes to this sort of fantasy thing where they're like in the moon, and there's at the end screen, and then they start like kissing on the mouth, but they're like turned away from the camera. I do like that one little section though, because then, and it's like right before the credits, the music changes to be like an orchestra version of Together Again, and it sounds beautiful, but then once the credits actually start, then it gets kind of more upbeat, and it still sounds really good and stuff, but just that one tiny portion of Together Again just sounds so nice. I wish it stayed like that for like the actual credits, especially because I feel like it would have fit, because like you ended the movie with a wedding scene and everything, and I feel like that'd be just kind of like a nice way to kind of end from there. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Muppets Take Manhattan. It's good. I mean, I don't think I've seen a Muppet movie that I've like absolutely despised or anything. I think they're all good in some way. It's it's the Muppets, so you're gonna have fun with it no matter what. I mean, I know what I said about the original Muppet movie. I think just because that one feels kind of slow, and I mean it is, I think, during or after the original Muppet Show or something, where they still have like the older design from Miss Piggy and stuff. And that does have some good scenes. Like, it has one of my favorite Muppet scenes. You got like the intro of like Kermit singing Rainbow Connection and stuff, but I feel like it doesn't feel as fun as the others where it's like the Muppets are already established, but it is cool as like a Muppet origin story, so to speak, of them having their theater and everything. But yeah, this one's alright. I think I probably liked this one more than like the original Muppet movie. I'm not saying that one's like last on the list. I think Muppets from Space is probably definitely down there. But yeah, I think in terms of Muppet movies so far, of ones I've been watching recently, it's Muppets Most Wanted, and then The Great Caper, and then probably Muppets 2011. And then I don't really know from there, honestly, but that I can definitively say for now is like the top 3. Muppets Most Wanted was just that good, apparently. Still can't believe it took me so long to watch it, but this one's somewhere in there. I don't know. But I do like these older Muppet movies. They definitely, before like they started doing adaptations and stuff, and they're kind of like their own original like story. I think just the first 3 especially. I don't remember. Let me just Google really quick what are the ones after this for like the 90s. Okay, apparently this was the last Muppet movie of the 80s. I was right, because then it's like Christmas Carol, Treasure Island, Muppets from Space, and then it's a bunch of TV stuff until you get to the Muppets Most Wanted. But yeah, the first 3 Muppet movies feel like very like charming and have like a certain vibe that I really like, because then it's like adaptations and then whatever for Muppets Most Wanted, and I mean Muppets from Space until you get to like Muppets 2011. It's really less like mainline Muppet movies, as I can call it, than I thought there would be. But yeah, that's the end of the ones from like the 80s and stuff. I don't know when I'll watch another one, honestly. All right, bye.